Good morning, welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Tony Haggerty. We're here to talk about all the latest Celtic news, the build-up to Rangers, the potential title party down the line at McDermott Park, Luke McCowan's situation with Scotland, all that good stuff. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Celtic Way is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Glasgow and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. Tony Haggerty, how are you doing this morning?
I'm very well, sir. I think I'm slightly better than you, because you're under the weather. Like a total professional and trooper you're soldiering on, so I applaud that, sir, because
I think my throat needs a transfer request, so maybe my throat can go looking for that on S1 Jobs. No, I'm doing okay, folks. I know I might sound a bit odd today. I'm struggling with a wee throat infection, but I'm all good. I'm here to talk about Celtic, and good morning to everyone in the chat. Great to see everyone. I had a wee day off yesterday, so it's nice to reconnect with everyone. Nice to reconnect with you, Tony. We spoke on Monday. How are you feeling this Wednesday morning?
I was waking up thinking, is it Sunday yet? How much further? Are we never there yet? Are we nearly there yet? Yeah. You just want the games to come now, don't you, John? Because the finishing line is in sight, and they don't come much bigger than Sunday, do they? And I have to say, it wasn't really in uppermost in my thoughts until the manager spoke, and he got me right up for it last week. And normally I'm quite reserved up until maybe a day or so before it, when the kind of nerves kick in. But after hearing Brendan Rodgers immediately after Hibs, I was like, what you said on Monday, bring on the Rangers. So I was just like, so it's been the kind of longest week ever, but looking forward to it. And obviously, as I say, it'll be a cracking game. And roll on Sunday.
As we know, Brendan Rodgers, the way he goes about his business, and the players, they'll be solely focused on this match on Sunday. They won't be thinking anything about any titles at the moment. They'll just be totally focused on the challenge of Rangers. But we're at the time of year, Tony, the inevitable time of the year, where kind of plans are put in motion. People are looking at the fixture list. Where can Celtic potentially win the title? And there was news yesterday that St Johnstone are putting a bit of an insurance policy into their upcoming match at home to Celtic, thinking that, obviously if Celtic win their next two matches against Rangers and Hearts, they'll go to McDermott Park with the chance to win the title. And as a result, they've given Celtic fans 3 stands of the ground, which I think is what we like to see on those kind of big occasions, if clubs can accommodate it. I know it's not ideal for these home clubs to be giving up such a large portion of their home support, but if there's money to be made for them, and there's the audience from the Celtic perspective looking for a potential title party, then you can kind of understand their thinking on it.
I think it's a wonderful common sense approach taken by St Johnstone, and making an early call on it, John, so there's no dubiety, so everybody is fully aware of what's happening on that day. Celtic supporters would have travelled in their numbers regardless, John. So I think it negates that, and every Celtic supporter who wants to see it and gets a ticket will see it. And I applaud St Johnstone for that. I've always said that smaller clubs, provincial clubs, call them what you like, they can decide whatever ticket allocation they want in their own home ground. And I can fully understand clubs reducing allocations for that, because it hands clubs like Celtic and Rangers a massive advantage when you go there. But it never did Livingston any harm when they were doing it. They gave Celtic and Rangers the majority and realised the financial spin-off and benefits from it. So St Johnstone can make a healthy 6-figure sum from that, and you have to applaud that and say well done to them. Reading a lot on social media with supporters saying, other clubs should follow suit, and it's not for Celtic supporters or clubs like Celtic to dictate to clubs their ticketing policy. But I just think in this sense, common sense has prevailed, and well done to them. And there's still a lot of football to be played before that becomes an eventuality. Celtic still have to beat Rangers and Hearts. So it's, in terms of, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, concentrate on Sunday. But I think St Johnstone have to be applauded, and you give them a special mention for that, for certainly putting the wheels in motion and saying, if there's going to be a title party, this is what's going to happen. Or the potential for a title party, this is what we'll do.
It does put it all into focus, doesn't it? Like, just what Celtic are on the brink of now. It's just like there was such an intense period of midweek to the week in football for so long. Celtic just quietly going about the business. A few wee bumps along the way, but that solid block of work has just set Celtic up so well for this, what could be a perfect end to the season. And again, there's no doubt, Brendan Rodgers is not thinking about the ticket allocation for St Johnstone in a few weeks. Not at all. But it's something we can speak about as supporters and observers and journalists, of course. And I think you're right. I think there's a lot of chat about ticket allocations at the moment. I obviously don't like to see away allocations reduced. I think there's an element of, if it all adds up, then you're kind of taking something away from the away support, from the away day experience. And I think Scottish football needs to be careful in a sense of, if they take too much away from the away day experience, then it takes away some of the unique factors of what Celtics fans' interest in Scottish football is. There's thousands of Celtic supporters who love the away day experience, who love travelling up and down the country following Celtic. And I think if you take steps to take that away, then that can be an issue for Scottish football moving forward. But as you say, it's not for Celtic supporters to dictate that. Every club has to take the situation on their own merits. For example, I think St Mirren have actually done pretty good work in engaging their home support, engaging their community, to kind of build attendance around their matches, and that did involve taking some of the allocation away from Celtic supporters over time. So, it's an interesting one, but obviously glad to see. I mean, McDermott Park, three ends of it would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
I mean, it'd be, as you say, I think you are in the home straight now. You can see the finishing line. The ultra marathon is finished, and Celtic have come through the back end of that in fine fettle, and you are ticking them off. I don't care what anybody says. In your mind, you're ticking them off as a supporter, and that supporters are allowed to do that. Supporters are allowed to say and think, well, Celtic will win their next two games, and will make that a reality at McDermott Park. And I don't think there's any better sight. When I think Joe Hart, I remember, said when he went to Livingston for the first time, and it felt like a home game, and he was really moved by that. He was just like, "This is incredible," So, and when you get a chance to do that, i.e., win the title at McDermott Park, and there'll be three stands full of Celtic supporters, it is a wonderful sight. And I don't disagree with anything you say about diluting and negating that away experience for supporters, because it is important. It's always been an important facet of Scottish football. It's a recent phenomenon, isn't it, with clubs reducing the away support for particularly Celtic. But I think there'll come a time when they won't be able to afford to keep doing that, John. I just think it is, as you say...
It works both ways as well, Tony, though, as well, doesn't it? Like, if the demand is there for away clubs to buy tickets at Celtic Park, then Celtic should accommodate that as much as possible. Obviously, the Scottish Cup is a unique situation, but we saw recently with Hibs, the amount of fans that they could bring. It's different for league games because Celtic sell a certain amount of season tickets every year, and so there's a limited amount of away tickets they can actually offer, except in special circumstances. But I think the same can be said, and I think it's good that Celtic, when, I know it's a rule, but Celtic were pretty accommodating with what happened with Hibs. They gave them an initial allocation, they sold it out quickly, and then it was just straight away, like, here's your 7,000. And I think that is it works both ways. I think away support in football is healthy. It's healthy for me. It's a good thing for me. I don't think we should be shutting any fan out that wants to see the game,
And speaking about that, and speaking to supporters that were at Celtic Park on Sunday, they thought it was great. They thought the atmosphere was terrific because there was so many Hibs supporters there. And as you say, I know the Scottish Cup's a unique experience, but if clubs come to Celtic and say, can we get an increased allocation, I'm all for that, because competition, healthy, and rivalry is what football's all about. And you can't bleat about not getting tickets for other grounds if you're not going to reciprocate in good old-fashioned competitive style. So I'm all for that. I always believe that if you're an away supporter, even just a supporter of any club, see if you want a ticket to see your team, and within reason, you shouldn't really be denied that chance. I get that with certain clubs, demand certainly outstrips supply, but I think if you're a follower of a St Johnstone, a Hibernian, and a Hearts, or whoever, and you want to watch your football club, especially at grounds like Celtic Park and Ibrox, then you should be able to do that. There should be no impediment to that. And I'm all for it, John, because I think it just adds to the excitement, adds to the flavour of Scottish football. And I think when you see it on Sky and there's empty seats, that grates you, doesn't it? Because I don't think you're portraying our game in the best light and giving it the best representation, especially when you're beaming it live on Sky and it's going out to many millions of people. So that's my bugbear about games like that, empty seats when the cameras roll in, because you want full stands, you want atmosphere, you want competition. So it's something I think should be looked at going forward, and I think the clubs should come together round the table and just see what's the best way here moving forward, because I think sometimes it's petty, John, with the cutting of allocations. It can be a petty act.
But it can come across that way. I think, some of these clubs might argue that, they're serving their support in the best way they seem possible, but I think you're right. The perception is that it seems petty, I think in the case of Rangers, the case of the Rangers and the Derby ticket allocation, I think you would say that was a petty affair.
And I think in terms of St Johnstone, if you're going to go down that route, St Johnstone have acted like an adult here and made an early call and said, this is what's going to happen. No dubiety, no fear of thousands of people trying to get in the home end or whatever. This is what's happening. If Celtic are coming to win the title at our place, we will give them 3 stands. Everybody knows where they stand on that. So fair play to them, and fair play for being big enough to say, do you know what? It benefits us too in the long run financially. We get something from it. We get something from that. If you're going to come and win the title on our ground, which again, you're going to still have to win a football match in order to do that. If you win the previous 2, all ifs and buts and maybes at this minute in time, but if you do that, then fine. Then we have to get some kind of spin-off from it. And that's what's happening. So I'm very happy about that. I think it's a very mature thing to do, John.
Yeah, I think so too. It's lively in the chat this morning, everyone. Great to see everyone's talking about allocations, stadiums, etc. If you want to join in the live chat, you can. You just need to be a subscriber of the channel. It's free. You just need to press the button and subscribe to the Celtic Way, and you will be able to join the chat, the live chat, pretty much immediately. A lot of people obviously talking about Hampden as well, just in the sense of we're playing St Johnstone in that match as well. And it's the same argument. You want to fill Hampden, so whatever makeup of fans, because Celtic can sell tens of thousands of tickets or Hampden, St Johnstone will push for as big an allocation as possible. But again, there needs to be a realism about how many tickets St Johnstone can sell. Give them an allocation. If they can't hit the mark, then give it to Celtic fans. That's how, that's the common sense approach there as well. It works the same at Hampden. You want the stadium to be full for a semi-final and a final.
My thoughts on that are, every St Johnstone fan that wants a ticket to that should get one, John.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And there'll be X amount of St Johnstone fans will travel to Hampden to watch their team in the Scottish Cup semi-final. The rest should go to Celtic. Yeah. So you say to the St Johnstone fans, how many are you bringing? How many do you expect to bring? And everybody who wants a ticket gets it. And then the remaining allocation should be given to Celtic.
And I'm pretty sure that's how it works. There's no sense that that's not how it's going to work. Some of the clubs are a bit chippy about it, but I think St Johnstone, like in this case, I think they'll be pretty sensible about it, because at the end of the day, it's money coming into Scottish football, and that's the way they want it.
Sorry, and Charlie McGarvey making a point here that some glory hunters. I understand that. I think for clubs like St Johnstone getting to the semi-final and and others, they're perfectly entitled to be glory hunters and come along and watch their team. As I say, every St Johnstone fan that wants a ticket should be at Hampden that day. If they're willing to travel and attend, then fine. But as I say, the rest should be given to Celtic, and I don't see it happening any other way. But this sometimes when clubs get that inflated sense of themselves, John, and say we demand 20,000 tickets, and you're just like, well, that's a bit unrealistic, And then, the SFA have sometimes turned around and said, there's so many tickets and they still can't sell out that allocation. And then sometimes you see swathes of empty seats. That annoys me, because you are doing bona fide football supporters, whether it be Celtic supporters, Rangers supporters, Hearts supporters, Hibs supporters. That's immaterial. You're doing bona fide football supporters who follow their team week in, week out of a ticket. These occasions should be full. There should not be a spare seat. So you give St Johnstone what they want, what they need, and what's required, and Celtic get the rest.
Speaking of hand in, Tony, Steve Clarke announced the Scotland squad on Tuesday. There was a few people wondering whether Luke McCowan was going to be in the squad. Now, as you may, I don't know if I said it to you, but I did say it on the channel a couple of times. I was sceptical that Luke McCowan was going to get that nod, and not because of what he's been doing for Celtic or his ability, but just the way, what I know of Steve Clarke, the way Steve Clarke picks Scotland squads. And I think he'd said previously if there was wee holes in the squad that he might look to one of the younger players, and he's done that in Lennon Miller. And as we know, we've spoken a lot about Lennon Miller's ability and how he's performing at such a young age in the Scottish Premiership. So it's less about Lennon Miller. It's more just, I'd like to see Luke McCowan involved in the Scotland squad in the future, but it seems like that might not come unless he's starting regularly for Celtic. Would that be fair?
And I think that is, you've nailed it there, John. I was just about to say the same thing. I think the only reason Luke McCowan's not in the team is because he's not starting regularly for Celtic.
Yeah.
He is making the impact in the games when he comes on, but I think Steve Clarke goes on my thought, the yellow jersey, and at this minute in time, Lennon Miller's got a claret and amber jersey, and he's playing every other week. And I'm reading a lot of social media, and fans having a go at Lennon Miller. I think it's terrific that Lennon Miller's in the Scotland squad.
Yeah,
and
he's not about Lennon Miller.
Yeah, he's not in the Scotland squad to the detriment of Luke McCowan.
Mm-hmm.
That argument is tossed right out the window. It's the Scotland manager that decides. So Celtic fans having a downer on Lennon Miller are saying that Luke McCowan should be in place of him. Should he? We would all love to see Luke McCowan get in the squad, but at this minute in time, he is not playing regular enough football for the Scotland manager to include him in the national team. And I think that's fair comment. Lennon Miller's playing every week for Motherwell. He's playing at a very high standard. Such a high standard that Celtic are constantly keeping tabs on him. And so I agree with you. I think in the future, it won't bypass Luke McCowan. But at this moment in time, he's not in the squad, but it's got nothing to do with Lennon Miller. And I applaud Steve Clarke for bringing in Lennon Miller. I really do, because you could be watching a potential Celtic player of the future. And so I'm interested to see, as much as I would be interested to see Scotland if Luke McCowan was in. So, yeah. And people saying that, Maestro 95's come in there and said Tony Ralston's in, so that puts the argument.
It's a different position.
Yeah, because he's got a standing relationship with Tony Ralston. He trusts Tony Ralston, and he's had Tony Ralston in previous squads, and he is, well, obviously a bona fide Scotland player, isn't he? And
there's no depth there at the moment for Scotland in terms of that right back position. So I mean that's the brutal reality of international football, is that a country might have an abundance of midfielders or attackers, and then another position, someone who isn't quite as established as someone who misses out. That's just the way it goes. But yeah, it's like, if it was up to me, I think Luke McCowan would be in the Celtic team. If it was up to me, I think Luke McCowan would be in the Scotland squad, because I'm just a big fan of how he plays football. Just like watching him, the way he aesthetically plays football. If anything, I think he does have end product, but I just like the way he plays with the ball at his feet, the way he plays with his head up, his balance and his poise, and this timing of pass. I think is lovely football to watch. But we know what Steve Clarke's like. He's such a pragmatic manager. And obviously he's looking at Lennon Miller as a player who can make an impact for Scotland over the next decade or so. Yeah. And I just think he's, for me, and again, this isn't a judgment on Luke McCowan. For me, it was just never going to happen. Just from what I know of Steve Clarke, I just don't think Luke McCowan was ever going to happen in this Scotland squad. But there's opportunity for him in the future.
That's not to say that he won't make the Scotland squad.
Yeah.
I'm fully confident that Luke McCowan will be in the Scotland squad in the future. The manager's just decided at this moment in time it's not his time. It will come. Because like you, I think Luke McCowan's a smashing footballer. I think he's terrific. He's very pleasing on the eye. But what I will say is, what about the levels of the three guys that he's trying to displace from that team? Then that shows you how good that Celtic midfield is at the minute. You know, with the go-to team or go-to trio in the midfield of Callum McGregor, Arnott Engels, and Rio Hatate. You know, and Luke McCowan has sometimes looked better than certainly one or two of them, or all three at times, but he still can't get a regular game in that team. No, but Brendan Rodgers knows exactly what he can provide. Steve Clarke knows exactly what he can provide. He'll be getting dossiers and missives handed to him all the time because he's that's his job, to be on everything and every player, every Scottish player who is making an impact and making waves at the club sides. And Luke McCowan is one of them. Does he deserve to be in? You can argue the toss both ways, can't you? If you've got green tinted specs on like I have, then you would say, of course he should be in, but not at the expense of someone else. He should be in on merit. And if you think Luke McCowan has merited a place in the Scotland squad, then that's fine. That's your opinion, and that's perfectly valid. At this minute in time, there's one man that doesn't think he's merited it, and he happens to be the Scotland international manager.
And as we know, Steve Clarke has never been one to go with what is the popular opinion. He goes with what his own mind is, and for better or worse, it's paid off, and it's been a problem for me in recent years. But it is what it is. And I think, you know, when Luke McCowan's situation at Celtic, everyone knew he was going to be a squad player this year. You know, that was what his role was, and was actually the beauty of the signing, is that you have someone so motivated, so desperate to play for Celtic in a squad role, you know, rather than someone, say, like an Odin Holm, for example, who was kind of signed for a squad role, but perhaps didn't quite have that motivation to play that squad role, you know. But Luke McCowan, he's just totally engaged with what Celtic is, totally engaged with all the, you know, he does a lot of kind of media work around the club. I think he did a bit of charity work around the club with the guide dogs. Like, he's just immediately fired into what it is to be a Celtic player. And according to Brendan Rodgers' comments a few weeks ago, it's just immediately as well made that step up in training to really compete with the established players that are here. And, you know, the way Luke McCowan's career turned out, he's a bit of a late bloomer in this a kind of high level. He was at United Dundee. I think he's 27 now. So that's just the way careers work out sometimes. But I think it'll be very interesting to see what Luke McCowan's role at Celtic is moving forward. If, say, Rio Hatate ends up moving on this summer, like, will Luke McCowan start to be more involved then? Is Brendan Rodgers giving him a year as a squad player to get used to the Celtic experience and then hope to kick him on next season? That is definitely an interesting one to watch.
I think the player himself will kick on next season, John. I've got every confidence in that because I think he's got terrific ability. I really do. And I think he's just biding his time, and he's poised and waiting for that nod from Rodgers to say, right, here's an extended run in the first team. He's not let anybody down when he's played. And I'm sure he'll be first on the call-up list should someone get injured in the midfield at any point between now and the international get-togethers. He'll be high up that list, top, if I'm being perfectly honest. And Luke McCowan is a player who you want to succeed at club and international level, all because he has did the hard yards. And he's not at Celtic because he's a supporter and living the dream. He's at Celtic because he's a bloody good footballer. Let's not forget that. He's a talented, technical, highly skilled professional. And yes, he is living the dream. He's at his boyhood heroes. We all get that. And it's come along later in life. But he's there because he's a very, very good footballer. A talented individual whose talents will earn him a Scotland cap. Not this time round, maybe the next time. And like you, I think there is a bedding in process at Celtic at times because that bar has been set incredibly high. But remember, this boy was a captain of Dundee. He played a lot of big games. He's packed in a lot of experience. So he wasn't coming in from the cold. He was coming into a league that he was very aware of, and he packed in a lot of games. So I think Brendan Rodgers is just, drip feeding, gets a full pre-season out of this boy and watch him fly and watch him go. Because he passes the eye test every time you watch him, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean that is the hope that he does kick on to be a regular at Celtic. But not all players are regulars either. It's good having squad players. I've always said that I don't mind having squad players that don't play as much. And the fact that fans are clamouring for him to get more minutes, I think speaks volume for what he's done in the role that he's been given. And what, maybe at the end of the day, why change that? Because if he's making, like, we know it's a squad game these days. We know we're the 5 substitutions. We know that McCowan's going to get half an hour to 20 minutes in most matches. And maybe that's fine for now. Everyone wants more. Everyone wants more. But McCowan is performing the role that he was brought into Celtic to do, and he's performing it with aplomb this season. And sometimes you just have to say, look, that's fine. I'm happy with that.
And the great thing about wanting more is he's got a wonderful manager who puts the reins on that. You see that excitement, it can be channeled the wrong way. And I look at Odin Thiago Holm, who came in and brings into a challenge in Champions League in his first game, at that level.
To the head. Yeah.
Rush of blood, that aggression, which is fine, but it has to be channeled in the right way. And I think Brendan Rodgers saw a lot of that in Luke McCowan, but has put the arm around him and said, this is how you do it. You know what I mean? There's a reason why Odin Thiago Holm is out on loan in America and he's not at the club, and he's not the player that Luke McCowan should be or should have been, right? There's a reason for that. Yeah. As you say, maybe not listen, maybe not taking it on board, maybe just not the manager's cup of tea. But this guy's came in and he said, right. And you saw him, he's very enthusiastic when he speaks. He called himself the sponge because he was just taking on everything on board. And Callum McGregor had that lovely thing when he said on his debut, I'll be here beside you. And that's the most reassuring thing that I think I've ever heard him say to a footballer, I'll be here beside you. Just like, trust us, don't have a rush of blood to the head. Don't do anything stupid. If you are lost, look for me, look to me. And I think the manager instilled that in McGregor to say, look after him, because we've got a gem here, but it just needs, sometimes you need to save footballers from themselves, don't you? The ones that say, I'm fit. Martin O'Neill tells that great story when the 78 European Cup final, I think it was, and Brian Clough asked him if he was fit, and he was like, I'm fit, boss. And Brian Clough said, that's fine, you're dropped. You never forgave him for that. It was like, do I ever forgive him? But, and that's what I mean, you have to protect players from themselves at times. Because Luke McCowan would have come in like a bull in a china shop because he was at his boyhood heroes. You saw him that day, he got unveiled at an empty Celtic Park with all the lights, and everybody took to him straight away because he went, wow. And you're thinking to yourself, that's just somebody who, got everything that he wanted from his career to play for Celtic. But sometimes, you need to, the horse just pull the reins in a bit and let them, develop at their own pace. And I think that, again, I go back to it, John, I think that's the wonderful man management from the manager in that sense, that Luke McCowan has looked the part and played the part whenever he's been asked to do the job.
So, last few days of the build-up to Rangers, what do you think Celtic are going to be focusing on here? Rodgers made a pointed comment about how their strength is in counter-attacking. They're going to have to be coming up with a game plan for that perhaps wasn't seen at Ibrox. I think it'll be a more physical game as well. I think Ferguson will obviously have them up for the match. It's a very intriguing encounter, I think, and Celtic's final few days of preparation, I think, is going to be how are they going to combat that counter-attack game? How are they going to get through the Rangers, the Rangers press as well, because they struggled with that at Ibrox as well. So a lot to work on training in the build-up to this one, Tony.
I think a lot of it will be premised on the video nasty from Ibrox in January. They stole our game.
They did what Celtic do. Yeah.
Yeah. They did a number on Brendan
Mm.
Rodgers' team at Ibrox in January, and Brendan Rodgers didn't like it.
He didn't
Doesn't
like
matter who's in the dugout, whether it was Philip Clement or Barry Ferguson, they ain't doing a number on Celtic again. All bases will be covered, and those players will have been made to watch and suffer that performance again. And quite rightly, John, it was very meek. And one way to say to guys, don't make sure this happens again, is to show them it and say, look how poor you were. That's not you. And then intersperse that with some wonderful things that have happened this season. Say, that's you.
Yeah.
That's an aberration. You know, not on my watch. I can forgive you for that because you're 16 clear. Go and show everybody why you're that team and not that team. And I think the players look, and I think professional pride kicks in players, John, as well. Those players I think they were shocked by how easily they were rolled over that day. Didn't think they were capable of being rolled over like that day. And it's a jolt to the senses. Everybody say, they were 13 clear and all that. It doesn't matter how many points you are clear.
The derby is the derby.
Yeah, in order to win those occasions, you have to turn up. And mark my words, Celtic will turn up on Sunday. But as I always caveat it with, it's no guarantee of a result. You're playing against a manager and a team who have everything to prove and want to prove that there is not a huge gap between the sides. There's a 16-point gap, and Celtic are 3 away from winning the title. And you are at home, and the onus is on you to turn up and perform and atone for what happened in January. And if the manager's early thoughts on it are anything to go by, then I think you'll find a Celtic team that comes right out of the blocks on Sunday. And it'll be interesting to see what Rangers do to cope with that.
Yeah, and obviously they've got their match in Europe tomorrow. Tony, I think we'll leave it there. We'll be back tomorrow, of course. Hamish will be back on the channel. Hamish had another wee day off today. I think as we know, there's lots of events and good stuff going on in Melbourne and the surrounding area. So that's what Hamish has been getting up to over the last couple of weeks with these days off. Fair play to him. I'm sure he's enjoying that. It's much colder over here, obviously. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, Tony. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for joining us in the live chat today, everyone. Leave comments down below if you want to talk about anything we've talked about today, or tell us that we're talking nonsense, or even if you agree with us, that would be lovely. That would be lovely. But yeah, I'm way off to get a limb sip, way off to recover, and we'll be back tomorrow talking more about Celtic. Thanks and goodbye.